What's up everyone, Brady Fugale here coming at you with another video, and today we have an album review for the new Wage War record, Stigma, which was released this past Friday, I guess 2 days ago now, June 21st. Wage War is a band where I really do like their first two albums. They weren't anything super mind-blowing, but they were consistent. They were a newer metalcore band that showed a good amount of genuine metal influence and a good amount of genuine hardcore influence. But unfortunately, after 2017's Deadweight, they kind of leapt into the octane abyss a bit too far for me to enjoy. And, I have no issue with bands kind of trying to go a bit more mainstream and really go for it and go for that mainstream success. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But a lot of times that ends up also resulting in just more diluted and bland versions of the band's previous material, as well as combining it with more radio-accessible elements and pop elements, which is exactly what happened with the next two Wage War albums, 2019's Pressure and 2021's Manic, which unfortunately I just couldn't really get into because of that. So with this next record, Stigma, the question becomes, are they going to continue with that? Are they going to experiment a little bit, or are they going to go back to their original sound? And the result is hints of all three of those directions, I guess. I was very surprised to see a very heavy industrial influence on this record. That really caught me by surprise. The singles didn't really have a whole lot of that. Nails might have had a bit of it, but besides that, I didn't really expect it from the singles either. The beginning track, The Show's About to Start, is a great example of that, even though it sounds like it could be the intro to fucking WWE SmackDown. It's catchy, it's groovy, and it's overall not a bad song. Happy Hunting and In My Blood also are good examples of this. And it's funny because these are songs that part of me just doesn't really want to like because they are very simple. And there isn't a whole lot going on instrumentally or lyrically, but they're just catchy songs. They have good grooves and good stops to them, and it keeps you engaged. Self-Sacrifice kind of follows in that vein as well, but in a bit of a heavier way, which I enjoy. My favorite song on the album is Tombstone, one of the heaviest songs they have probably ever put out. I love the very percussive style, guitar work and drums. I really enjoyed the hardcore influence in this song, which has kind of been absent from their last few albums. So right off the bat, I respect that they kind of ventured out a little bit and brought in some more influence as opposed to just going full-on radio rock octane core. But unfortunately, there are some songs that do that, and even the songs that I just mentioned that I do enjoy, I do wish they were a bit more, at least instrumentally interesting. Because there's really only a few parts on this album entirely where I hear an instrumental section that I actually find to be somewhat intriguing. That slightly Slayer-influenced final breakdown and outro in the song Tombstone is a great example of that. I also really like the outro in the song Self-Sacrifice, how it kind of switches time signature there and goes for more of a triplet feel. So there are parts like that. I just wish there was a bit more of it, or that there were entire songs built on parts like that, as opposed to just kind of teasing us with it at the end of songs that are a bit, not bad, but could be better. I really like Tombstone and Self-Sacrifice, but if they had really gone full on with that, like I said, the Slayer influence or just the change in the time signature there, if they did more of that throughout those songs, it would be so much better, so much more interesting. But some of the songs on here, there's no saving. Magnetic, by far, is the worst fucking song on this record. I cannot fucking stand that song. I said earlier that I'm glad they didn't go full radio rock. Unfortunately, that doesn't apply to the entire album, because this song is the biggest fucking pander on the entire record. You got the painfully simplistic song structure, you got the vague and bland lyrics. The song is just so uninspired and has no originality to it whatsoever. Blur is another one I really don't like. That chorus sounds so awkward, the way he kind of just stutters the words. It would have sounded so much better if he just kind of belted it and it ended up being kind of edited to sound like that, as opposed to him kind of just starting and stopping his singing. It sounds so awkward and it makes me uncomfortable listening to it. Hellbent is one that kind of just bores me. Doesn't have a whole lot going on. Nothing redeeming about it. It's not catchy. It has no hooks. The closing track, Is This How It Ends, is maybe a little better than the songs I just talked about, but it still is very octane, still has vague lyrics. which unfortunately is kind of something that applies to this entire record. It's probably my biggest criticism of this record is that these lyrics, they're either nonsensical, extremely vague, or just super generic. They sound like they kind of wrote themselves, and they didn't come from a place of actual songwriting or inspiration. A lot of these songs are also super repetitive. Like I said, I really like the song Tombstone, but that chorus, it's repeated way too many times. Happy Hunting, another song that I didn't hate, but super repetitive and cliche lyrics. Same with The Show's About to Start. Just these songs are not saying anything. Even the ones that try to show genuine emotion, like Magnetic, again, like this is supposed to be a genuinely emotional song that invokes emotion out of the listener. But the way this song is executed and how it just is so painfully simplistic and generic and how it blatantly just whores itself out to the radio makes it completely void of any emotion that you could possibly pick up from it. The industrial elements are cool at times, and there are those few instrumental sections that I do think are genuinely either catchy or those small sections, like I mentioned before, that are somewhat musically interesting and musically diverse. Those really are the only positives from this record. And I want to like this record. Every single review I do, every single album that I intend on reviewing, that I listen to repeatedly to prepare for the review, is an album that I genuinely want to like. And it always disappoints me when I end up not liking it. But this record just does not feel consistent. It does not feel cohesive. It feels so uninspired, even with those few positives that I mentioned. It just feels like they're going through the motions as opposed to actually using their music as a creative outlet. So I like the idea, what they went for here with that slightly more industrial influence, but I wish everything else about this record besides that was more creative and more ambitious and more inspired. But unfortunately, it's just not. It doesn't feel like it is because it's not. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this album. This album gets an 11 out of 30 for me. As always, thank you guys very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe for more rock and metal related content. I would love to hear your thoughts on this record, so please comment those below. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace.